Hello all, welcome back to this lecture series on industrial relations for EPFO. So in this video, we'll be talking about the Occupational Safety, Health and Working Conditions Code 2020. Previously, we have discussed the definition of wages and the various provisions of the wage code, the Social Security Code, and now this is the Industrial Safety and Welfare Code, or formerly known as OSHWC Code. What is the scope of this particular code and what is important from MCQ perspective? Firstly, we have the definitions. Secondly, we have the definition of core activity. What is the obligation of employer towards his employee? What are the various provisions that talk about the safety committee? What are the rights of the employer? What is the national and state advisory board in the context of this industrial safety? And what are the issues that you can see in the case of contract and interstate labor, and what are the provisions that this code lays down for them? So this is the scope. Each of them can be a potential MCQ question, so please pay attention. Now this code is actually an amalgamation of 13 laws. These 13 laws are repealed, just like in the case of other labor codes. So this code has 143 provisions. Are we actually going to memorize them? Not really. The cost benefit is pretty low. We are just trying to understand the broad provisions and the logic behind them. So why is this code created? Firstly, to create uniform standards, to reduce the paperwork for companies which are uh, entering into our Indian territory for establishing factories and manufacturing activity or any kind of industry. Thirdly, it is with an objective to increase the ease of doing business, because if you reduce the number of registrations, it will actually lead to uh, ease of doing business, because previously each industry or a sector had separate registration form and different laws, which was very confusing, and the cost of legal procedures was significantly high just to start a company. So we are trying to reduce all that. Firstly, the definition of employer, employee and worker is uniform across all the codes, so there is no change in the definition. However, when we are talking about the case of contract labor, you have to remember that part-time employee is actually an employee only. He will be under the books of the employer but not under the contractor. Just remember this point, nothing else is important. As per this code, you have to know the definition of establishment and factory. If you take the establishment as a bigger circle, factory is just a subset of it. Just to remember, I'm giving this visual presentation. So establishment is something that has more than 10 people working there. It can be a factory, it can be a mine, it can be a port, transport, whatever. Previously, each of this sector had a different law, so it was very confusing. Now just remember that any establishment has more than or equal to 10 employees. Secondly, the definition of hazardous process. There are certain criteria laid down in this code to define what hazardous process means. One, the criteria is health of the worker is deteriorating because of his working there. Secondly, it is creating pollution. The definition of wages is same as in the wages code, so no need to elaborate it here. And the definition of contract labor includes interstate migrant also. Please remember this, especially in the context of COVID, it became very important. So employee means he can be a person working in the administrative department, he can be a supervisor, he can be a managerial position holding person also, but any person with a less than 18,000 salary, he is not treated as an employee, he is treated as a worker. So please beg your pardon, in the previous video by mistake I've said 15,000. Please correct that, in the previous video it is 18,000. For the sake of convenience, this is called the Industrial Safety Code, but formally it is the OSHWC Code 2020. So this Industrial Safety Code defines employers as one, contractors. If there is an employer or someone who founded a factory or an establishment passed away, his legal representatives are also considered to be as employers in the definition of employer in this code. Previously, Factory Act, Mines Act, all this did not recognize this, but this is the new addition. Now, in this definition of industry, everything that is related to the production, supply, and distribution of goods or sometimes services also is under the definition of this employer. However, there are certain exceptions. You have to focus on these exceptions. One, charitable organizations. Two, government departments. However, it applies to the contract labor appointed by the government because they are vulnerable. Permanent employment is not given to these people. That is why they will still have certain rights. And thirdly, domestic workers. Now, there are two more caveats here in defining an establishment. Previously, mine, port, or plantation, all this category of workers is defined as if they have more than 10 workers, anything that involves excavation purpose, they are treated to be a part of an establishment. Sometimes, if the usage of power is involved or not, will also define the definition of an establishment. If there are 20 workers where power is given, then it can also be an establishment if it is not falling under the category of mine, port, plantation. For these categories, even 10 workers is enough to be treated as an establishment. But in every other case, if there is power involved, the minimum number is 20. If no power is involved, then the minimum number is 40 for the application of this particular code. The second thing that we have to focus upon is the definition of core activity. Say, for an example, you have a factory, like say you have Maruti. Maruti is basically an automobile company, but within that Maruti factory, you will also have certain cleaning staff, administrative staff, uh, facilities for canteens, etc., etc. All these are not the core activities of the company, but they're pretty much essential for the functioning of this plant. So, core activity will try to balance between the ease of doing business and employee social security, because what happens is sometimes even the normal activities, the core activities of companies, like say for example Maruti in this case, there is a possibility that Maruti can actually employ even the workers working in the core activity as contract laborers and thereby denying them the social security. Just take it as an example, not literally. I hope Maruti is not doing it, I'm sure, but that can be a possibility, right? However, things like cleaning, canteen maintenance, and all this contracts can be actually outsourced by Maruti. They don't want such kind of a headache, right? So, in such cases, by defining core and non-core activities, the extent of contract labor can be clearly delineated by the company. So, contract labor is allowed, that too only from a licensed contractor only, if normally done through contractors, like say for example cleaning and canteen maintenance, they don't need full-time workers. And if there is a temporary increase in volume, say if Maruti was supposed to produce 100 cars in a month, suddenly there was a demand surge and they want to produce 500 cars, so for this additional 400 they can temporarily hire a set of workers on contract. That is allowed. Next definition that you have to know is the definition of manufacturing process. In this manufacturing process, a big list is given. You don't have to remember all that, but what is included for the first time in the definition of this code is printing press and cold storage. Now, printing as such cannot be termed as a manufacturing process. Similarly, cold storage cannot be termed as a manufacturing process. So they just included them here so that it gives the necessary legal sanctity for workers working in these industries. The next definition is that of hazardous process. If there is a threat to humans, property, plants, animals, and most importantly, microorganisms. Now, one might wonder what is so significant about microorganisms when you can actually care about people. But if you take a look at the environment syllabus as a part of your GS, even this is a part of your GS. So I don't have the bandwidth to explain this topic here, but just understand that every ecological uh, component has its own role in that ecology, and microorganisms do have a role in that ecology. So your processes or industrial processes cannot threaten the microorganisms in that area because they are important in the food chain. So you cannot impact them and disturb the balance in this environment. So this is the definition of hazardous process. Just remember that microorganisms is also a part, a very important point. So this is the key information that can be asked as questions from this slide. The next thing that you have to note is the duties of the employer. You don't have to by heart it. If you come across these provisions in MCQ, you can identify them with your common sense. Naturally, an employer will have an obligation to ensure that the worker is safe, is free from any hazards in the area. That is when he can work peacefully, right? So, as a part of this, if the person is working in a hazardous setup, the code mandates that certain class of employees who are exposed to these dangers, they get free health checkups from time to time at no additional charge. Obviously, it is not for everyone. It is only for those who are exposed to that environment. And next thing is, it so happens that a lot of companies say that we are trying to employ you, just come down and start working. But at the time of termination, there is no appointment letter, or sometimes it so happens that even when an employee is waiting for his appointment letter and letting go of other opportunities, there is no legal guarantee that he will get the job. So mandatory appointment letter is a duty of the employer. So the next set of provisions apply for docks, mines and constructions. In this case, whenever there is a hazard, the architect or the designer or the project engineer, he is actually responsible for ensuring the safety. At what time? Even before the actual construction of the project happens, at the planning stage itself, he has to take into account the safety concerns of the people working there. The next thing is the safety committee. Now, what is the safety committee? So basically, all the issues individually, a worker cannot go and complain to the management. The management itself can be so huge that there is no official communication channel in big organizations. So for this purpose, there is a safety committee created, and this safety committee is mandatory based on certain criteria. What are those criteria? If it is the case of mines, the minimum number of workers is 100. Hazardous substances are involved in the manufacturing processes, then in such companies or such organizations, 250 workers. All other factories, 500 workers. Now one might ask a question, is it important to remember these numbers? The answer is yes. Now this code also has a provision of an inspector come facilitator. Facilitator, have a keen observation on this term facilitator. Previously, inspector created this inspector Raj. Now the additional facilitating role given to the officer implies that in the first instance itself, you are not going to punish the companies for non-compliance. The officer is responsible for informing the companies about their duties and give them certain room for implementing the provisions of this code. In the case of mines, this inspector cum facilitator is actually a district magistrate. Please note this point in the case of mines. And this law is progressive because it has certain provisions like provision of locker room for transgender employees also, and the conditions are actually laid down by central government. So these are the points that you have to note. So all this PPT information can be found in t.me/Hindu highlights, which is a Telegram channel where I'll be posting this particular PDF. You can just go there and download it. Right. The next thing that you have to note here is the rights of an employee. So if the employee, in the case of an observation of unsafe conditions, he can ask the employer about the steps taken to ensure that the safety of employees is addressed properly. If he's not happy, he can inform the employee, and if the action is not taken, he can reach out to the inspector cum facilitator, and because of the facilitation role, he will be educating the employer, and if the action is taken, fine. Otherwise, whatever decision that the inspector or facilitator takes, decision making is final. So, firstly, he will be a facilitator if the employer is not listening and the concern is very genuine. Then the inspector role will come into the picture and the decision taken will be final. So, this is the algorithm or the rights of an employee. Finally, the most important thing, how does this law or the new code actually address the concerns of contract labor? Firstly, it is applicable for more than 50 contract labor. Previously, it is only 20. So this is considered to be a measure of ease of doing business, but at the same time, a lot of labor unions are accusing that their rights are being taken away because companies might now intentionally create contracts in such a way that there are only 49 workers, so that this code is not applicable to them. As per this, the contractor should have a mandatory license and this license is actually common for all the establishments. Previously, different kinds of setups had different licenses. Now, all of them have been bought under the same umbrella, including the BD and cigar industry contract workers. The next thing is it has provisions with respect to interstate migrants. In the case of interstate migrants, once in a year, the employer or the contractor, in this case, should give him or her a one lump sum fare for to and fro journey to his or her hometown. In the case of female employees, if they are contract workers, if there are more than 30 females employed in that contract, then a creche is mandatory previously. Now that number has been increased to 50. Actually, the burden has been reduced to the companies. With respect to Factories Act, previously, welfare officer this welfare officer was made mandatory for all the factories which had more than 500 workers. Now that has been reduced to 250. This is a provision in favor of the labor, but these points are of concern for the labor unions. Canteen provision. Should the contractor ensure that there is a canteen at the place where these workers are working? Previously, it is applicable only if 250 workers are there. Now it is 100. 6-day week. If there is a non-stop work for 20 days, one extra off day is given, and the normal usual work week is 6-day week. There should be at least one day holiday. It need not be Sunday, any day in the week. And this is applicable even for transport, sales, journalists. They have special work hours, so you cannot say 9 to 5 work hour is applicable for them. They have different set of timings. So these are the provisions for contract labor. That is all you have to know in this code. If you want to download it, I've just given the link of Hindu Highlights Telegram channel. You can just go there and download it. If you like the video, just like, share, and subscribe. That's it for now. Thank you.